Today we bring you our third and final special episode of Quality Digest Live from IMTS, this time broadcast from the Mar Federal booth here, high above the floor at McCormick Place.
That's right, and we'll be looking at some great innovations presented during the week, as well as a pair of technical product demos from our host, and that and more when we come back. This episode of Quality Digest Live is sponsored by Mar. Mar has over 150 years of experience in manufacturing a wide variety of dimensional metrology equipment.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for September 15th, 2016. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest Editor-in-Chief, Dirk Ducharme. You know, the last time we were at IMTS, that was, 2014?
2 years ago,
That's
right.
That's right. They 3D printed an entire car here, an entire vehicle 3D printed. And it was called the Strati, and that was from a company called Local Motors.
Sure.
The co-creation micro factory company, if you're not familiar with it. The company's name is actually Local Motors, that's the name of the company. This year, Local Motors had another vehicle at IMTS, the Olli. That's O-L-L-I. Olli is a driverless vehicle, and it's not really a car or a bus. Think of it more as a small shuttle. It holds like 12 people, which is kind of its purpose. Local Motors sees it as an on-demand, first mile, last mile vehicle. In other words, you get off the train, for instance, or the L, we're here in Chicago, and take an Olli to work, or maybe the other way around. You get off work, you hop in the Olli, and you take that to the subway. So, I mean, it's not a very fast-moving car. Think of it maybe as a replacement for walking or riding your bike. It only has a top speed of like maybe 12 miles an hour. So it's kind of fits a special niche. Now, the thing that is unique about Olli, and even the Strati for that matter, is not so much the vehicle themselves, which are, okay, if you've seen them, they are unique, or even how they are made, 3D printed in the case of the Strati. The unique thing about the Local Motors products is the approach to development and manufacturing. That's really what I want to talk about a little bit. You know, obviously here at IMTS, as we've said, the focus is basically manufacturing. And the state of U.S. manufacturing is visible big time here.
Very much so, yeah.
But if you walk around, what's it feel like? It feels like big manufacturing, large manufacturing, big equipment.
Economies of scale.
Economies of scale. I mean, it's everything. You look here and you go, wow, this is manufacturing in the traditional sense that you think of manufacturing. Co-creation and microfactories like Local Motors are a completely different way of approaching manufacturing. So think about it, we're all familiar with this. In a typical manufacturing process, a group of developers at the company come up with a product, and then maybe they prototype it and they test it, and then they build it in large manufacturing facilities in a few central locations around the world, perhaps. Then those products are put on ships or maybe planes and trucks, and they're transported around the globe to the markets they will then be sold into. So sometimes there's a huge distance between where a product is manufactured and where it's actually going to be sold.
Yes, exactly.
And that's an interesting thing, because think of all the waste that goes into transport, right? Local Motors approach and the microfactory co-creation approach is completely different. The development process is what's called co-creation. That's the co-creation side of it. So the way that works is a problem. We need a vehicle that will, take the place of bike or walking, slow-moving vehicle. How do we, for use in cities, how do we do that? So maybe that's the problem. That's presented to the co-creation community. That community could be interested customers or consumers. It could be city planners. It could be small production facilities, engineers, whatever. But these are not necessarily employees or even a part of Local Motors. These are people literally in the community.
Right.
It's a collaborative ideation process. So then these ideas for solving the problem are voted on by the community. Will this idea work? and the process to turn those ideas into products are developed. Then the products are built in local, let's call them factories, but these may not be traditional factories. These could be very small storefront factories, probably special built to make just those things, which is kind of what Local Motors is doing. They're building just these special vehicles. Or a microfactory conceivably could be part of an existing factory or shop, just something that shop, hey, we've got the capability here to make these things, sure, we'll start making these things here. But the idea is that these production facilities, these microfactories, would be spread around. They would be local to the market. So you could drastically cut down on transport costs. The key to a lot of this, and at least with what Local Motors has done, is, let's say, 3D printing. And you can see how this would fit in very nicely, because essentially you have one machine, a 3D printer, that could produce a variety of parts from a digital model. And by the way, the whole digital aspect of the co-creation microfactory thing is very strong, because very often the design bits are communicated digitally, which fits in very nicely to, well, not just 3D printing, but automated production, that sort of thing. So let's get back to the Ollie a little bit. According to author Frank Gruber, writing in the online magazine Tech.co, Ollie was the co-creation of Local Motors and their co-creation community that led vehicle designer Edgar Sarmiento to develop Ollie. Ollie can carry up to 12 people. It's a cute little boxy little thing.
It's right here, actually.
And that's right, it was running around here at IMTS. And it's equipped with some of the world's most advanced vehicle technology, including, if you haven't heard of this, the IBM Watson Internet of Things for Automotive. IBM Watson is almost an AI type approach, where it recognizes a lot of different sensors and voice recognitions and so forth, and makes intuitive decisions. Starting back in June, a few months ago, Ollie is now being used on public roads locally in Washington, D.C., and soon will be in the streets of Miami-Dade County and Las Vegas later this year. And you might be going, well, gee, so what? This isn't beta testing.
Yeah, this is going.
This is actually
happening.
running.
Yeah, sorry.
And so the amazing thing about that is that Local Motors and Ollie actually beat Google, Apple, Uber, Ford, GM, all the rest to the punch. I mean, those guys, they have cars in beta testing, and we know that, but Ollie is actually up and running, not in beta, now in Washington, D.C., and they're rolling it out more as they go. It's built in National Harbor, which is just one of 100 microfactories that Local Motors wants to install around the world. So currently Local Motors has microfactories in Knoxville, Phoenix, Arizona, and in Berlin. So this whole process, I think, has some interesting ramifications for U.S. manufacturing.
Very much so, yeah.
Well, I mean, getting away, or more realistically, de-emphasizing large manufacturing plants, instead moving to local microfactories. So, I mean, if you think of some of the impact of this, you could have employment spread around.
Sure.
So, for instance, you had, let's say if it was GM, and I'm not even sure this is realistic, but let's just brainstorm here for a little bit. So instead of GM having several plants in the United States that employ thousands and thousands of people, you might have a lot of micro plants generating vehicles. And then you would be spreading the employment of, let's say, GM, around to microfactories all around the United States, all around the world, maybe including communities that have a labor problem, where there's lack of employment and so forth. You could be opening up employment to a larger population by moving microfactories into areas where you normally wouldn't think of putting a factory for whatever reason. Well, maybe because there's not tens of thousands of people to be employed, but maybe there's 150 people to be employed, right?
Good jobs, yep.
Exactly. The other thing that would happen, microfactories, as we've already talked, reduce shipping costs. Well, you say, okay, so you're reducing the muda, you're reducing the waste and transport, but you're also, everybody knows the cost of transport is built into the cost of the product. If you cut transportation costs down, you're also reducing, potentially, unless the company pockets the money, you're reducing the cost of the product. Product could sell for less if they're sold locally.
Exactly right.
They get to market faster too, not to mention that. You could have products more made to order. The other thing is you get away, if you look at the co-creation aspect of this, get away from the microfactories, just think of what happens when you have an entire community in terms of including the customers and maybe engineers that don't even work for the company involved in the ideation, involved in the creation. Think of what that does for innovation. You get away from the groupthink,
right,
let's say, of a company, and you have your manufacturing solutions and your innovative solutions coming from a more broad base of creators. And so not just the product ideas themselves, right, but the actually, okay, so how do we make this? You know, I mean, so a company might say, well, gosh, this is really going to be difficult to make, and maybe we shouldn't do it this way.
Yeah. But you know, it's interesting because one thing they pointed out in that article that we were referring to, because that was in the IMTS magazine that we got here yesterday, which was interesting, where we found that and researched that a little bit, is these are not hobbyists. This is a business. This is a business model, and it's a little different from what's called the maker community. You know, a lot of times when
basically hobbyists.
You know, a lot of times when you think about co-creating, you have this idea of the maker community. It's not that. This is a business model. Right? So that these microfactories are not just welcoming people in to, hey, work on your thing and try it out. I mean, they have a very specific goal to work on a very specific project or set of projects, and it is a business model. And it's a very different business model in the manufacturing basis than what we're seeing here. We talk to people here. You know, economies of scale really do work, and it's worked that way in manufacturing for a lot of years, but when you look at lean manufacturing, economies of scale, you start to see a lot of the wastes that crop up on the edges of economies of scale. And
this is almost the reverse of economies of scale.
It really is, but in a sense, it's very lean because
you're cutting down on transportation.
You're cutting down on a lot of the transportation, a lot of the waste, and the wasted efforts of a large organization with all the supporting structures, all the billing, all the collecting, all of the R&D. I mean, a lot of that stuff is done by the community as opposed to by people that are on salary and doing that. So there's a lot of efficiencies of doing that. It's a really interesting, different model.
It's really an interesting model. Local Motors is the one you hear about doing it.
Yeah, but it's cropping up all over.
You're going to see it's cropping up all over,
all over the place, Great. Good stuff, Dirk. Really good story there, I think.
Oh, by the way, another kind of more of a mainstream example of co-creation anyway, not necessarily, not microfactories, but co-creation, is DeWalt Tools.
Yeah, that's right.
DeWalt Tools uses basically a community of customers and consumers to help form the ideas for what new product or what product features should be coming out in the next DeWalt Tools. Right?
Yeah, it's going to be increasingly what we're going to see in 2018, 2020, 2022, and the IMTS as they come. You're going to see more and more of that coming up. Great stuff, Dirk. Thank you for that one. All right, well, it's been a great week, of course, for us here at IMTS. We've enjoyed ourselves tremendously here in Chicago. We really appreciate the support of all of our show sponsors, without whom we could not, of course, bring you these live broadcasts. And in a few moments, we're going to be bringing you today's Tech Corner from today's sponsor, Mar. Yes, our good friends at Mar, showing off a pair of their measurement systems. First, however, before I do that, I want to touch on an article that appeared in today's issue of Quality Digest Daily. As I said yesterday, a lot of stuff going on outside of IMTS in the quality industry. Well, the market view on quality, 3 key takeaways, is the name of an article written by Tim Lozier that appeared in today's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Now, Lozier's company, Verse Solutions, is a provider of quality and compliance management software, which is a tool used by many of those here at IMTS, as well as I'm sure many of you there at home. Now, Verse recently undertook a survey of industry professionals to determine what they are or really aren't doing to manage quality in their organizations. And the results there were interesting results. Looking at them, they weren't necessarily surprising results, and we'll get to that in a minute, but they were very, very interesting because the methodology they used to ask these questions and derive the data was pretty cool. I'll get to that here in a minute. The first takeaway, though, is that quality is increasingly a core value of high-performing companies. Gee, that's a shock, right? I mean, it's
right. Who knew that?
Quite an eye-opening insight. But that's not necessarily eye-opening, but what is eye-opening is to see that the vast majority of survey respondents, 80% of them, have embraced a quality management system approach to improvement. In other words, these people take quality seriously, 80% of them. So that's a lot of people of the survey, and they're putting structures in place to reinforce performance excellence through the organization, which of course is critically important. So remember that 80% number first, because the second key takeaway was that half of those survey respondents do not use an automated system to manage their QMS. So if you think about that for a minute, again, 80% have a QMS in place. They've dedicated the resources to quality. They've established a structure. They're doing that, yet 50% are using things like email or spreadsheets or even using pen and paper. We've heard about it here on the floor. A lot of people are using pen and paper systems to manage their quality. Now, full disclosure, Verse Solutions has a dog in this fight, of course. They offer exactly the kind of automated solutions that half of the respondents in the survey don't have, but they didn't lead with that. They didn't lead that as a thing. They just kind of revealed that through the survey, which was interesting. But I found it interesting that so many quality-focused organizations are reliant on, kind of rather limited tools to help them manage quality. The third and key takeaway of this survey was that executives in particular expect quality management systems to be easy. And I mean really, really easy to use and implement, right? I mean, these executives don't want to mess around. Of those executives surveyed in this survey, 47%, almost half, thought that software, you know software really well. 47% of executives thought that software should be either ready to use immediately or within a day or two with no subsequent changes or adaptations needed for their particular organizations.
I see what's coming now.
Half of them, okay? Another 16% expected to spend no more than an hour or two adapting the software to meet changing business requirements going forward. Think about that. I mean, so the quality folks are looking at buying the software and they're implementing it. Meanwhile, the executives are saying, well, get it going. It's got to be ready right away out of the box.
And the quality guys, who very often are engineers, they want it to be tweakable and adaptable and adjustable.
And they know it doesn't happen that way, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting. So taken as a whole, when you look at all that data, the results of the survey indicate that there's really a disconnect in the understanding of how quality should and can be properly managed within an organization, both in terms of the tools that are needed and how quickly and easily those tools can be implemented. What's not in dispute, though, is that quality remains important and even has a growing number of proponents in the executive suites of these organizations.
They just want it to be easy.
They want it to be easy, but they know they have to do it.
They have to do it.
They know they have to do it. So, I mean, this to me led to a really interesting question, because we hear all the time, we say it all the time, and a lot of our columnists say it all the time. We hear it from you, our readers, that the first thing you need if you're going to have a quality system that works is you need top management support. Top managers need to embrace it, they need to champion it, they need to support it in order for quality to take root in an organization. So from hearing that all the time, you'd think that top management involvement was 100% a good thing. Well, maybe not necessarily. I mean, if you think about it, there's some pros and cons to top managers being involved, right? I mean, the benefits are that you have resources, you have champions in the organization that have some pull and can get things done, but there's some problems with that too. I mean, top managers will tend to meddle. They'll tend to kind of not be as close to the knitting as maybe the quality people, and they will say, well, in this example, well, the software should work like the day we buy it, right? I mean, we should be able to start, putting all of our systems into it, and it should do everything we want it to do right away. Well, that's not really reality.
Well, yeah,
so much.
I think there may be another thing at play here too. Is maybe they don't trust that their own people will be able to figure out how to customize it in the way that the managers. Because it's easy to come in and tell the manager, okay, look, our software does this, this, and this. You push the button, it's ready to go. Well, that's very easy to understand. You come in and you say, okay, well, your guys, they configure it to do this and that. And it can go to the cloud, and there's Internet of Things, and they start throwing stuff out, which the quality guys are going, really? Oh, that's awesome, and it's starting to go over the head of the managers, and they're going, wait a minute. You're talking configuration, you're talking stuff I don't understand. I'm starting to get a little nervous because now I don't really know what I'm buying. Right.
Or how long it's going to take me to be able to use it.
Exactly, yeah.
What the actual tail on that's going to be, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a disconnect within the organization, but it's not uncommon. It's not just in quality, it's in every element of the organization where these executives are being pounded by all their different reports, direct reports, not only quality, but production and operations and finance and everything else, and they know enough to know, but really they have to trust the quality person to know what programs and products they need to support their systems. So yeah, you want top management support, but you also kind of want them to back off a little bit and let you do your job.
Let me choose the software.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a really interesting survey that Verse Solutions did. If you want to learn more about it, if you want to check out this whole topic area, because it's really an interesting one, you'll want to tune into our webinar. We're doing a webinar next week on the 20th, on Tuesday, called The Market View on Quality Management, what your peers are doing or not doing. That's coming up this Tuesday, September 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Dirk will be hosting that. Tim Lozier, the author of that piece from Verse Solutions, will be presenting.
And Tim's always does really good
Yep.
presentations.
Yep.
Really interesting guy.
We've done a few with them, so keep an eye on your email. You'll be getting some reminders on that, and check out that webinar. It's going to be a good one. I'm very certain.
Cool.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, yes, we're here at MAR. Yes, yay, MAR Federal, and we're going to turn now. Wait, I got that right there. We're going to turn out to today's Tech Corner, and it's a double play from MAR, and it's really good. Dirk's going to move downstairs now to the lower portion of the booth and connect with Dave McKenzie, MAR Director of Sales for Metrology Systems. Together, they're going to demo the, I believe it was the MMQ400 and MAR Shaft Scope 250. So David and Dirk, take it away.
Okay, so I'm going downstairs now at the MAR booth, and we're going to go over and we're going to talk to Dave McKenzie, and we're going to look at the MMQ 150, which is a what?
That's right, Dirk. This is a roundness gauge, a very simple roundness gauge, and actually for MAR Federal, this is our entry-level cylindricity measurement system. So thanks for coming by to take a look at it today.
Well, sure. So why don't you kind of take us through and point out the highlights? I noticed it does have looks like a pretty straightforward user interface.
Right, it's very simple to use. You can go to the selection screen and then just pick the measurement routine that you need based on the geometric dimensioning and tolerancing symbols you have on your drawing. So for instance, if I have a drawing with a roundness call out, I touch the roundness icon. Then roundness is always on ID or OD, so you only have those choices available to you. So we've done what we can to make the user interface really simple. You choose ID, and then touch the Start button, and the system will take the measurement and give you the result of roundness. So very simple.
I can see now that as it's measuring the roundness on the screen, we're showing, and it looks like this part's got some lobes to it.
Definitely got a tri-lobe shape to it, which comes from either machining it in a 3-jaw chuck, or maybe someone over-tightened the chuck when we put it on the system. So
it's always embarrassing when you do that.
That's right. Well, we have custom fixturing that we use to prevent that kind of thing. So that's another point about the value we add on these types of systems, that we do custom fixturing to prevent that type of thing. But in this case, you can see about 50 microns of out of roundness in a tri-lobe shape. Sometimes this comes about as a result of different kinds of grinding processes, or as you say, in the roughing stage where you're holding it in a 3-jaw chuck on a lathe, you put that shape into the part.
Okay.
Very good. Oh, well, you can check these other features. As we mentioned, it's an entry-level cylindricity gauge, so the z-axis is a measuring datum. Okay, so it's straight, and we know that it's aligned to the c-axis of rotation. The principles of form testing haven't changed in many years. You have a very precise bearing. This would be less than 50 nanometers of error in rotation. You have a very straight z-axis, and then you just use these motorized x-axis to position the gauge head where you need it on the part to take these different measurements. So for instance, we can center and tilt. These are the simple routines. We can create a datum axis. So if we need to do a run out, for instance, we need an axis for that, we can construct an axis for it. And we can also construct a datum plane. And then the other really common call-outs are cylindricity, which is looking for the error of shape in a cylindrical form, and the various runouts, including total runout, which is the requirement for the overall shape plus the axis, the deviation from the axis.
Okay, so this was the MMQ 150, and I believe we're going to go over and look at a different MAR product right now.
We'll go over and take a look at the MAR Shaft Plus 250.
Okay, great. Let's walk over there.
Very good. Here we'll need to, move.
Okay, and so now we're over here at this with the MAR Shaft Scope 250 is what it says there on the screen.
MAR Shaft Scope Plus 250, right across the front. And sometimes I get 250 and the plus are reversed. So my friend Pat Nugent would tell me MAR Shaft Scope 250 Plus. Very good.
So what is this?
And this is an automatic optical shaft measurement system. So what you do is you take a part, and it's very convenient if it has centers. We also can provide a chuck or other devices to hold parts in place. We put it on the center of rotation. In this case, this little spool has centers in it, so that works out very nicely. So we write a measurement program for it. We touch the start button to measure it, and it will take off and measure the part.
Okay, and I see a laser that's going down and
Absolutely right. This is a pulsed light and a matrix type camera that we're doing the measurements with. So this is like an advanced type of profile projection system that uses a matrix camera.
And then on the screen over here, what are we seeing?
Well, you're seeing the overview and then the results of the measurement. So if we try it again, you can see loading the measurement routine from a function button, which makes it very easy for the operator to use. And we'll go ahead and take the measurements, and you do about 57 measurements on this shaft, lengths and diameters, checking radii and so forth, all together, and you get the results in about 12 seconds.
And how difficult is this to program?
It's really quite simple, and I'll show you just a little bit about the programming in a second. When you start off by making a profile scan, so we'll do that now. The camera moves in the z-axis, and we create an automatic image. Then you can look at the command window, and what I've done is just chosen a few favorites. These are our macros, okay? So you can see a diameter macro, a length or distance macro, and a runout macro, and a macro for creating an axis. So for instance, if you want to measure diameter, you can just touch the diameter icon. We'll do a static measurement. Then you can just come up and touch anywhere on the part. We'll automatically pop up a window and make suggestions about the nominal size based on the automatic scan that we took. And then it will populate default tolerances, which we can edit later. So
you would put like a golden part in here and kind of select it from that, right?
Well, you can, yes. If you had a part that was exactly in tolerance, you could do that as well. You could put a part in that was a master part and then measure your deviations from there. Or you can go ahead and actually go back to your blueprint and input your nominal tolerances. Now, if I want to measure this diameter, I can just touch the measure button, and the system will run, and we'll get a result. So you can see up here then the result of the measurement using the deviation from the nominal size that was automatically input from the scan of the part. If I want to edit that, then I can just do that right from the screen. I can input my blueprint tolerances and make changes however I like to get the program the way I want it. And then I can just save the program, and I'll be able to run it. And we have the function buttons across the bottom where we can put 32 different programs that you can reach by function buttons, so it's very easy to use.
Okay, so again, this was the Scope 250 Plus.
Exactly right. Optical shaft measurement system.
Okay, Dave McKenzie, thanks a lot.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you. Back to you, Mike.
Well, thank you again, David McKenzie, for that great overview of Mars MMQ150, actually, for form measurement, and Marshaft Scope 250 Plus for shaft measuring from the ground level of Mars' expansive booth here at IMTS in Chicago. And as my partner Dirk again joins me from again on the top level.
Sorry about that.
Let me just say, well done, Tech Corner, Dirk. As always, you run up and down on these things all over. And in fact, excellent work on all the Tech Corners this week.
Oh, thank you.
Live from the show. Dirk, of course, is our expert at interacting with experts.
Or act like an expert.
And asking the right questions. All right. Well, we're nearing the end of today's show, but before we go, we'd like to once again thank our host and sponsor one more time, More Federal, a member of the MAR Group with more than 150 years of experience providing dimensional measurement solutions to fit your application needs. MAR manufactures a wide variety of dimensional measurement equipment, from handheld gauges to technically advanced measurement systems for form, contour, surface finish, and length. MAR is also well known as a producer of custom engineered measurement equipment and a provider of calibration and contact measurement services. For more information, if you're here at IMTS, stop by the MAR booth at booth E5614 or visit online at www.mar.com.
They also make some nice mugs.
They do. These are great mugs. We've tapped them like now 4 times, and they've held up great. Thanks,
All right.
Mar.
Okay, well, that is the end of today's show. This is the last show coming to you live from IMTS 2016
That's right.
in beautiful downtown Chicago McCormick Center, right on the
Lake Michigan.
Lake Michigan.
It's a big lake.
See, I was going to say lake, and then I went, hey, I don't know what lake it is.
It's Lake Michigan, yes, even though we're in Illinois.
But yeah,
I
I think they would call this half Lake Illinois. Okay. Don't forget to miss the upcoming webinar coming next week with diverse solutions. The market view on quality management, what your peers are doing or not doing. And that's this upcoming Tuesday, next week, September 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So you want to be able to show up and watch that.
Yeah,
It'll be a good webinar.
keep an eye on your email, and we should say don't miss it.
Don't miss it.
Don't miss it.
Yes.
Be sure to not miss that webinar because it's a great one. Yeah, coming up again on the 20th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
Don't miss it.
Don't miss it. Check out your email. You'll be getting a reminder about that soon. Well, that's our show. That's all of our shows. Thank you all for joining us from IMTS. Another great year at IMTS, and we'll see you back here next Friday. Not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, the 23rd, for another episode of Quality Digest
From
Live.
the Quality Digest headquarters in beautiful
Chico, California. Chico. All right, we'll see you then. Thanks.
So,
bye.